Where are we next? Subintel. This is we've covered this a couple of times before. It's cropped up again, and it needs to be addressed. Licenses that would allow American companies to resume selling parts and software to blacklisted Chinese tech giant Huawei will be forthcoming very shortly, according to the US Secretary of Commerce, Wilbur Ross. Now, Ross said that some 260 firms have filed requests for such licenses, promising that quite a few of them would be approved. Now, in May, as the trade war between Washington and Beijing escalated, Trump put Huawei on the Commerce Department's entity list, citing national security reasons. I'll have more about that later. And firms on the list are barred from working with US businesses if they don't have a special license from the government. Now, Huawei repeatedly denied accusations that its tech is used for spying by the Chinese authorities, pointing out that Washington never provided proof of those claims. If this is the case, the government needs to tear up the National Security Act entirely. As with this and several other business ventures has proven, the National Security Act means absolutely jack. Huawei would have full access to our systems with this venture and spying on a massive scale, which is no different to being spied on by the CIA and NSA, I might add. So the government has to come clean here. We are either in a trade or cold war with China, or we're not. You can't say we're going to issue licenses and then say they're part of a problem of spying on us. If they continue with the former, then Huawei and other foreign-controlled entities that involve communications here have to be removed. And we create our own network of independent communications, which is independent of any other nation. Otherwise, you're always going to be open to spying one way or another. Don't make the mistake thinking this is China. It's not China, it's the system. The Chinese dragon groups and the Rothschilds, the KGB, Mossad, CIA, NSA, all work together. They're not separate. And they all spy for each other. But you cannot talk of national security and then have cable or Wi-Fi owned by foreign groups. Internet is owned by foreign groups, and our military is owned by foreign groups, I might add. And then turn around and preach to the people about national security. It needs to be sorted out, Mr. Trump. It needs to be sorted out. Maybe there's something in Russia, I'm sure that was in this week, of how the Russians are going about it, and maybe we should copy it, not because it's Russia, but because it's the right idea. Sask Power has announced that they're removing all the smart meters that are installed in the province. I think this is Saskatchewan in Canada, I think. And the minister responsible for Sask Power, Bill Boyd, said the utility company will be taking out all 105,000 smart meters. Around Saskatchewan. And I think the concerns about safety are paramount here, he said. The concerns are significant enough, and anytime families are at risk, actions have to be taken, and that's why we've directed Sask Power accordingly. Now, the removal of the smart meters over the next 6 to 9 months will cost around $15 million. That's probably an excuse to put the bill up. And we view it as similar to a recall situation, and the people of Saskatchewan shouldn't be responsible for the costs of this, and we'll do everything we can to recover the costs. Boyd said he will also be reviewing why the new meters weren't properly studied or tested before they were installed in homes. Interesting comment, is it not? And he also said, I don't know whether there was enough testing done or actually any testing done. But he said we'll certainly be conducting, along with Sask Power, an internal review of the procurement procedures around this and around the safety concerns that people had. We want to determine when these were originally ordered, if there were safety concerns known at that point in time. So he said we have a lot of questions we're going to be discussing with Sask Power about how this came about. Now, earlier this month, Sask Power temporarily suspended its installation of smart meters around the province after half a dozen caught fire. Smart meters, smartphones, smart cities, none are particularly smart, as in clever, on our part, if you ask me. Perhaps it's all in the words, because the word smart also means to burn as well. And we've been burnt far too often by their smart offerings. Yes, the crass stupidity. This is in Japan, and it's a sign again of the way think tanks and marketeer clowns are trying to change the culture of how we go about things in daily life. This is oppression of the highest order, telling people what they can and cannot wear. The latest one is wearing glasses at work in Japan. And apparently it's become quite an emotive topic, following reports that some firms have told female employees to remove them. What if they can't see? And several news outlets said some companies had banned eyewear for female employees, for what is said for various reasons. Among them, some retail chains reportedly said glasses wearing shop assistants gave a cold impression. And that has sparked heated discussions on Japanese social media over dress practices and also women in the workplace. The Nippon TV network and Business Insider were among the outlets to report on the issue, which looked at how firms in different industries prohibit women from wearing glasses. And they included safety reasons for airline workers, or being unable to see makeup properly for women working in the beauty sector. Oh dear. Perhaps they need a new job. If these people who impose this, the best thing to do is the whole staff walk out and boycott the company. If they've got no staff, there is no company. But have you ever heard such marketing drivel in all your life? You know, marketing people are what happens when you educate, not teach people. They have zero understanding of life and are just obsessed with pieces of paper with numbers on them. And that's what you get. So-called think tanks of lunacy. Again, this is something we've been warning about, and I'm pleased to hear that people are paying attention and acting upon it. But a university professor in China is now suing a wildlife park for enforcing facial recognition in one of the first significant legal challenges to China's rapidly growing use of the technology. And it is an issue that has become a matter of heated debate in China. Now, the Professor Guo Bing says the Hangzhou Safari Park is violating consumer protection law by compulsory collecting visitors' individual characteristics. And after it suddenly made facial recognition registration a mandatory requirement for visitor entrance. This is like the Disney. They said it was because of the 9/11. Yeah, right. And the park has since compromised by offering visitors a choice between using the previous fingerprint system and the high-tech facial recognition, a bit like the TSA. You either get your tits fondled or they show pictures of them instead. That's how it works. And the park is one of many institutions to introduce facial recognition at its entrances, and China has been aggressively rolling out facial recognition in the past 5 years. Originally, it was said as means of boosting security, but now it means of bringing consumer convenience to people's lives, particularly in e-payments. There's those convenience again. Yes, it may be convenience, but you don't know what you're giving away. That's the problem. The hidden data. However, this professor questioned the necessity of it, and there have been bigger conversations about the extensive amount of data that is being kept on citizens. Now, Dr. Mimi Zhu, a Fangda Career Development Fellow in Chinese commercial law, says that the case is very likely to be dismissed if Professor Guo continues to pursue it. So in other words, they're threatening him. And she says that at present there is not a legally binding instrument that deals directly with his claim, which is that the park is making collection of his biometric data a condition of entry and therefore rendering his consent meaningless. Nice comments. Perhaps I should read that line out again. And this is what you were up against and these type of people. There is not a legally binding instrument that deals directly with his claim, which is that the park is making collection of his biometric data a condition of entry and therefore rendering his consent meaningless. What people don't know is those cameras are absolutely everywhere. It's not new either, and are far more prevalent than most realise. But it is nice to see some taking a stand. And here's, I probably should have followed this up with the story earlier. A bill obligating all devices in Russia to have local software pre-installed on them is being considered by the Russian parliament. And if it becomes law, there are fears that Apple could leave the $3 billion market altogether. The legislation, which passed the first reading by MPs on Tuesday, stipulates that any smartphone, computer or smart TV sold in Russia must have Russian applications by default on it. Such software, it claims, is friendlier and more attractive for Russian users than Western counterparts. But experts warned earlier that Apple may be forced to abandon the Russian market if such legislation is adopted. and the US company's philosophy is to only install its own iOS operating system and apps on its devices, no matter the country where it came from or operates. And it says it won't be a problem for devices running on Android though, as the platform was always friendly to software from other developers. Now, the proposed law also imposes hefty fines on sellers or manufacturers who fail to comply with it, and the government will have to define which devices and software will be covered by the bill, which the lawmakers say will protect interests of Russian internet companies and also help overcome foul play by large foreign IT corporations. That's something that the America and Mr. Trump should consider. But first we have to get rid of the criminality in the CIA, NSA and Palo Alto and that whole conglomerate of spying systems down in California. How are we doing? Okay. Remember, I mentioned, it was probably a few months ago now, probably 3 or 4 months ago, and we've done seemingly billions of hours of shows since then. But we mentioned about giant takeovers becoming prevalent as the market was about to get squeezed again into a smaller few. And perhaps these next two items are a pointer towards that. The brewer Anheuser-Busch in InBev, Nevada, will buy the rest of Craft Brew Alliance that it does not own in a deal valuing the Portland-based brewing company at about $321 million, according to the two companies on Monday. And shares of the Craft Brew Alliance soared 123% after the bell. Now, the deal is a reversal in stance by the world's largest brewer, which actually owns 31% in Craft Brew and has said in August it would not buy the company out. Yeah, they lie. Global brewers are facing several challenges in large developing markets in Asia, Latin America and Africa, even as people consume less beer in Europe and also the United States. Then in comes KKR & Co. has formally approached drugstore giant Walgreens Boots Alliance about a deal to take the company private in what could be the biggest ever leveraged buyout. People familiar with the matter said, leveraged buyout. Now, the New York, no surprise, based private equity firm has been preparing a proposal to potentially buy out shareholders of Walgreens Boots. And it's unclear how feasible the transaction would be given the need for large amounts of financing, and Walgreens Boots and KKR could decide against pursuing the deal. You watch, it will go ahead. Now, Deerfield, Illinois-based Walgreens Boots has a market value of about $56 billion, but is also $16.8 billion in debt. At that size, a take private of the company would top the largest leverage buyout in history, beating the 2007 sale of the utility TXU Corp, again to KKR, and TPG, which was worth about $45 billion, including debt. They're decentralizing. Another, no surprise, Go Ogle has now gained access to a huge trove of US patient data without the need to notify those patients, thanks to a deal with a major health firm and the scheme dubbed Project Nightingale. Sounds very CIA, that to me. Was agreed with Ascension, which runs 2,600 hospitals. GoOgle can access health records, names and addresses without telling the patients, which was first reported by the Wall Street News Journal this week. And the tech giant said this was standard practice. Really, not telling people that you've got all their data. Standard practice, that tells you everything about GoOgle. And among the data GoOgle reportedly had access to under the deal are lab results, diagnosis, records of hospitalization, and dates of birth. Neither doctors nor patients need to be told that GoOgle can see this information. And the Wall Street Journal reports that data access began last year and was broadened over the summer. Now, in a blog, GoOgle said its work with Ascension would adhere to industry-wide regulations, really, such as the US Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996. Well, obviously that act doesn't work to protect the people, does it? Only snake oil salesmen like GoOgle. To be clear, patient data cannot and will not be combined with any GoOgle consumer data, according to the firm. Well, why did he have it then? These people just think we're all stupid. Ascension said the deal would help it to optimize patient care and would include the development of artificial intelligence tools to support doctors. No, it's not to support doctors. It's to support their Libre system, decentralization, everyone's data going into the AI and an all technological world that we covered in Clowns in Panic show. If you don't believe me, go and watch the series Continuum. It shows you what they're going to do. And the company also said it would begin using GoOgle's cloud data storage service and business applications known as G Suite. Very Freemasonic, that. Last piece before we get into the Intel and a music break. There was allegedly, that's all I can say, I wasn't there, so I can't prove whether it did or it didn't happen. But there allegedly was a shooting in another school today. An all too familiar occurrence when the news narrative is turned away from their agency-fed bullshit. It happens too often now. People are seeing the pattern. But perhaps they are using word magic again, particularly with the name of the school. You know, this is how these people think and work with secret codes and numerology and coding. The school is called Saugus, S-A-U-G-U-S. S-A-U-G means to choke. So the school is called To Choke or Strangle Us. That may or may not be relevant. Time will tell.